share screen.
Here we go. You guys get a probably little message pop up.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks. This is our February Sunnyside United Neighbors Board meeting, February 28th, 2022 at 6:30. And we've got Katie, Bobby, Joseph, Bill, Tripti, and Emma on. I think we technically have a quorum as well. Well, I'm gonna actually just a couple of things. So the minutes, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? And then if so, can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Oh, we got Lindsay. Can someone second, please?
Second.
All right. Any objections with approving the minutes for January? Seeing no objection. Thank you, Emma. I sent her a couple of corrections. I think I copied the group. So I'm all good on that. On the agenda, we are going to have Vicki go first. And Vicki had asked me this months ago, and she had also prepped with putting a video and a presentation together. So this was something I wanted to make sure that she had the opportunity to talk with us, which is why we didn't push her back, because I know we have lots of other things going on as well. But we'll have her go first. As far as the agenda, does anybody have any concerns with what we've got on there right now, or something else that is higher precedent that we need to remove something else? If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any objection on this agenda as it is written right there? I think we should have time for all these things. Seeing, hearing none, we approve the agenda. Anyone have any announcements? I do not this time around. So if anyone has something that they want to let us know about what's happening in the neighborhood, or something that they become aware of that would be important for us to know, please, please share, raise your hand, or just go ahead and speak. All right, we've got nothing there. All right, no announcements. We're still missing a couple of people, and we do actually have a couple of minutes. We actually have a couple of minutes before the presentation. So I'll just give them a minute, and I'll text a couple of people and see if they're able to join, if they're running a few minutes late.
Tripti, I'm just going to go baste my squash and I will be right back.
You're going to go baste your squash. Okay, thank you. I'm actually in Frisco. I'm going to be here for this whole week, and I'll probably, most likely will be up in Breckenridge next week, back home for the weekend. Just worked out weird that way, but I've got 2 weeks up in the mountains, and we're going to try to get some skiing done.
I was going to ask, where does one get good squash this time of year?
At the grocery store, King Supers or Safeway. I don't know how good it is, but
Grow them yourself, the winter ones.
eating some squash. All right.
All right, are you back? All right, well, I'm just gonna pull up her intro and read it off just so I get it right. I did text the couple of people who are missing to join, because I did not hear that they wouldn't be able to. And I really do want them to hear all of Vicki's, the intro and her presentation. So I'm gonna wait till 6:40 for them to get on. I do have something I can share. There is a new social equity dispensary that's actually going to open up in Sunnyside. I believe this is in that location where on 44th between Elm and Elliott. And this is where that coin operated laundromat was. So Amanda Sandoval sent a intro email to me with the folks over there. And I haven't spoken with them, but I reached out and just asked them about, if they wanted to present to us or share something with us, we would kind of go from there. And I don't know the date for their needs and desires hearing, but it's probably coming up.
What is the establishment, Tripti?
I'm sorry, I don't know how the business name, but it is a new dispensary. And if you've been following, there's been new dispensary licenses are only being given to social equity applicants. These are applicants who've had run-ins with the law regarding like marijuana possession in the past. And these folks are now able to apply to get licenses, which they were not able to do before. So I believe this is a state statute that was passed a little while ago. And this is a new application, and it's actually in Sunnyside. And you may not have been around for this, but the first application, which had at least their designated area fall into Sunnyside, they are on 52nd and Federal, and they're going to be opening up in the next 2 weeks, and they'll give us information about either their opening, and they're also hiring. One of the things that they're going to be doing is trying to hire local. So Katie, in the business corner, this could be going in there, either the opening, but definitely the jobs piece of it. So I've asked them to confirm, what they want included before Thursday. I think there's probably been a few more applicants that have been processed, but the one on 52nd and Federal in Chaffee was the first one, and they will be the first one to open. And they'll let us know about the opening. I don't have the opening date, but I talked to one of their reps today, and it'll be in the next 2 weeks, but they may not do a formal opening for another 2 weeks after, like one with, the governor and the mayor. They're invited. Governor probably not showing up, mayor possibly, but they'll let us know what that looks like. All right, so we are at 6:41, so I'm going to get started with Vicki. And Vicki, bear with me while I pull up your.
No worries.
I was talking and I wasn't pulling it up. All right. So Vicki Collins is the publisher and editor of Bucket List Community Cafe. She's a freelance television producer and journalist with NBC Network News. Working in both national news and community journalism gives her a unique perspective. Vicki has her own production company called Teletrends, which has produced for broadcast, cable, national syndication, Olympics, digital, and nonprofits. She has lived in Sunnyside and Berkeley neighborhoods for 5 years. I met Vicki maybe three and a half years ago. It was like the same time that I started getting involved with the board. And I know she works with RNOs and does stories about the leadership or things that are happening, because I know Jason Horniak has done something with her. She's interviewed me 3 years ago. And most recently, and we're going to get into kind of ways that we can, partner, but I've also written an article for her. So there's also kind of that piece of it. So what I'm going to do is start the video first, and then we're going to go to the presentation. So hang on, folks, and we'll start this video. I do believe it works if I can figure it out.
Just press play.
Oh, no, I know. Thank you. But you know how you have to open the screen? There we
Bucket
go.
List Community Cafe is at the intersection between journalism and community. It's your North Denver home for information, inspiration, and interaction. Everyone has a story. Tell yours.
We build community by telling our stories.
Let's hear diverse voices from different neighborhoods in Denver.
Bucket List Community Cafe is positive, leans toward social justice.
It's journalism by walking around.
Bucket List Community Cafe welcomes all our neighbors
and collaborates with nonprofits
and small businesses.
We believe journalism is stronger when it is community inspired and supported. Please join us and contribute to Bucket List Community Cafe. Bucket List Community Cafe is
Bear with me as I pull up the presentation and share it with you guys. Sorry, I have a lot of things open. All right, and here we go. All right, can everybody see this?
Tripty, go back one slide.
Oh, sure, yes. Here we go.
Well, thank you very much, Tripty, and thank you for inviting me to your R&O meeting. I really appreciate being here, and I'm very excited to tell you about Bucket List Community Cafe if you're not familiar with it yet. The reason it has its quirky name is because doing something like this was on my bucket list. So I named it Bucket List Community Cafe, and it is now trademarked. And go ahead and change the slide, Tripty. Bucket List Community Cafe is your online home for information, inspiration, and interaction. We're doing community journalism in a different way. I like to say that it's journalism by walking around, because we really feel like we're the closest to the homes and the streets and the neighborhoods of North Denver. And we try to be friendly and positive and neighborly and accessible. It really is news at your fingertips. And what you're looking at right now is what it would look like, what Bucket List Community Cafe would look like if you pulled this up on your phone. We just did a story about the Welton Street Cafe. We put out a bunch of new content this past Sunday, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. And we have a whole bunch of new stuff coming out this week as well. So this is sort of the area that is that we cover, although we do get outside of this area into the adjacent suburbs like Edgewater and Wheat Ridge, and we get into Green Valley Ranch and Montbello. But we sort of start north of 6th, and when the fires happened in Superior and Louisville, we went up there because you couldn't ignore that. And so, but this is our core area, is the kind of northern half of Denver. So what we do, we are community inspired, community supported online journalism. And I'll tell you more about that as we move forward, but we are trying to make this a reflection of the community rather than the news telling you what's going on in the community. So we cover North Denver and the surrounding areas, as I let you know, and from Facebook and Instagram metrics, there's a potential for us to reach up to about 200,000 homes in this area.
And this is important for us because Vicki very often takes things that we're posting and then posts it on her platform as well. And this is kind of, you know, some of the benefits we get from partnering with her.
So we believe in building community by telling our stories. And it's very important to us to be inclusive, and we care about those who are BIPOC and LGBTQ. We care about people experiencing homelessness and the food insecure, and also those living with disabilities. And even though I'm based in Northwest Denver and you all are based in Northwest Denver, we're really proud of the fact that we're covering all of North Denver and sharing, you know, the stories from Sunnyside with the people in Montbello, and sharing what's going on in 5 Points with the people in Congress Park, and that we're really trying to connect people and build community throughout this whole area. And we're a welcoming space to get to know neighbors all over North Denver. We're all about building community, not being particularly divisive. There are lots of other people who, you know, newspapers and television that, you know, have all the analysts and the editorials. Our mission is to build community and to, you know, realize that there are more things that unite us than divide us.
I'd like to say kind of on this grassroots piece, I don't know if it may be on a later slide, but there is no advertising dollars she accepts. This is not something she's doing that is not part of the motivation and the plan or the model. So this community supported journalism, you know, truly is that it's the community that supports it, because, you know, it's not happening through advertising dollars, which is what happens a lot with, you know, journalism or marketing or print marketing, is that they, in order to survive, they have to have advertising dollars. So this is a very different and much more of a grassroots model that she has. And, you know, we don't have something else like that.
And we do lean towards social justice. We feel like we have a unique niche at the intersection of journalism and community. And, you know, for example, when the controversy came up at Park Hill United Methodist Church about setting up the safe outdoor space for people experiencing homelessness, there was quite a bit of pushback in that neighborhood. We covered the story, we covered the pushback. And the thing that was really interesting, because a lot of people covered the story, right? But we tried to do it in a very grassroots way. And because we're part of a journalism ecosystem, our story went all the way to NBC Network News, and they ended up doing the story, which started out being pushed out of the community. So, you know, we're proud of being at kind of at the intersection of journalism and community. You can go ahead, Tripti.
Oh, yes, I'm trying. It's just not wanting to move. Sorry.
no.
Yes, I know.
Stuck.
Hold on. Let me see if I can do it a different way. Hold on. Let me get back up. Sorry, the little arrow just wasn't moving. We got that. Okay, it's this one, right? No, we got that. We got that. Here we go. Sorry.
Great.
Go ahead.
So one of the things we've learned doing this is to make this community inspired, we need to be collaborating and partnering. And so we collaborate with the RNOs. Tripti has been a very good friend of ours. We also collaborate with small businesses and nonprofits. We just love supporting the community, and that's part of our mission. In addition, Bucket List is committed to helping the next generation of journalists. And we currently have 5 students from the University of Colorado's College of Media, Communication, and Information working with the team. In addition to having writers and reporters in the community and people like Tripti who write for us, we have 4 students now who are reporting and 1 who's our manager of engagement. They've got mad skills and they're doing amazing work. I'm really, really, really proud of I call them my kiddos.
And just to clarify, Vicki has literally have to pull my teeth to get me to do something because I'm just so busy. But I just love the work that she does. So I'm always like, wow, I'd love to help.
She's our earth mother. She writes about gardening and things like that. Okay, so let us show you our metrics that are taken from Facebook and Instagram and our website. One of the things that's exciting is we're getting the attention of people across all age groups, which is a little unusual, but you know, the bulk of our folks are in the 35 to 55 range, but we do have people, you know, who are in their 20s and people who are in their 60s. And so we're kind of covering a wide range of age groups, and mostly women, but we're working on that. Our Facebook reach. So the way Bucket List is structured, we have a Facebook page, we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have a website, we have a newsletter. So our Facebook page, which is kind of our daily updates and hear things going on, it's a combination of aggregation and original content. In the last year, we reached about over 46,000 folks, and we were up over 50%.
And to add in there, many times she'll post and then, you know, tag us, and I may share that because it's relevant. And a lot of times I'm sharing stuff on social media and I'll tag Bucket List and then she'll share it. So in terms of that partnership and collaboration, that's one of the ways, besides, you know, just either providing content or finding content. And we'll talk about that. We talk about how we can partner.
So in terms of our reach, we find that when we post original content, our metrics soar. So you can see from this graph, a couple weeks ago, we posted 4 stories and we had a couple thousand views. And where you see the dark orange is we had a local Olympian named Stacy Gaskill who was in snowboard cross, and she was communicating directly with Bucket List. And I thought that was kind of a big deal. So I boosted that post on Facebook. So I paid $20 and it just helped reach many, many more people in the community who maybe aren't familiar with Bucket List already. But you can just see the lighter orange is just all the people who came to the site because we posted new content. Instagram, we've been focusing on more lately, and the growth there has been really phenomenal. We've had over a 600% increase in the number of users who are coming to our page, 400% increase in the number who are actively engaging with our content, which are like likes and comments and hearts and things like that. And then a 20% overall increase in our followers just in the last 3 months. Our website trends, these are kind of cool. So if you look in 2019, there wasn't a whole lot, and then it kind of grew exponentially in 2020, where we were doing a lot about COVID and the pandemic. And then last year, we pretty much doubled that. And in the first 2 months of 2022, we're almost halfway to where we were in all of last year. And this is something that's absolutely remarkable. And I actually asked Maren, who's our engagement manager, to verify this and double check it because I didn't really believe it. But our newsletter is being opened and read by 88% of the recipients who are receiving it. We have about an email list right now of about 600 people, and we're trying to grow that to 1,000 and more. But we keep hearing that people love our newsletter, and it's apparently getting very, very well read. It only comes out once a month. So if you haven't signed up for it yet, go to our website and subscribe to it. And it's free.
And these open rates, I mean, they're kind of unheard of, you know. I mean, we get 50 sometime percent, and it's like amazing. Lindsay, you probably know, you know, from the kind of open rates for newsletters, like, you know, 20%, 30 could be an average typically. So 80's kind of phenomenal. When we get to 50, 60, I'm pretty happy with our newsletter getting to that point. So this is pretty cool. And I was asking her, I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but I need to maybe figure that out and do some of that too.
And I did make Maren go back and double check it. I'm like, Maren, are you sure about this? It can't be real, but she did, and this is real. So what does this mean for the community?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. there's more original content about people, issues, culture, and events in neighborhoods of North Denver. And, you know, we are doing our best, even though I live in Northwest Denver, to get out in the various communities to see what's going on, to connect with people in other areas of North Denver and other RNOs, and to try to stay on top of what's going on in different parts of the city. Our goals are to be innovators in community journalism, to grow with original content rather than aggregation, to cover more community events, to create new collaborations and partnerships, to build a more diverse team. We're not very diverse yet, but we're working on it, and to encourage larger contributions. So we were one of 26 newsrooms, along with the Denver North Star, that were selected by the Colorado Media Project for a $5,000 matching grant. And we managed to raise almost $5,000, and that'll be matched. So we're going into 2022 with about $10,000, which is so exciting. I've never fundraised before. It's incredibly difficult to do, and but we have some money now, and what we're looking for to make us sustainable is to be able to raise more money in larger amounts. So, you know, I mean, we had one person who donated $3, and we had another person who donated $300, and we had somebody who donated $1,000. But they're all mostly just small donations, and we realize that to continue to grow and be sustainable, we're going to need to raise money in larger amounts.
And I think this slide is really important. She and I, you know, we looked at this earlier. You know, some of this pieces like growing with original content, covering more community events, and kind of collaborations, partnership. This is where I think, you know, the RNO, the partnership that we can have with them, because, you know, if anybody is aware of content that should be covered, we can reach out to Vicki and say, hey, did you know, maybe this is of interest, right? Obviously, things we do and that we want to promote through our events, you know, she'll broadcast further for us. And there's, you know, creating the new collaborations and partnerships, kind of the same. Like, how do we work together to help one another, promote one another? And, you know, again, I've been working with her for the last 3 years. She was just started in 2019. And it's been a very good relationship where we both just help each other. And she's obviously kind of solidifying, you know, thinking about money, paying her journalists. And she was doing all of this on her own before. But if you guys are aware of things that are going on that are important, you know, I suggest you know, forward some of that to her to see if it's worthy of, you know, a deeper dive into that. So I think we've got ways that we can work together. And I think that's kind of the important thing for us here.
Which kind of leads us to the whole notion of it being community inspired and community supported. We have no advertising, no memberships, no subscriptions, no paywalls. Basically, we are just putting it out there that if you like what you see, please support us. And it's very different than what we're seeing among other journalism projects, where there are memberships and people are paying for subscriptions. I don't want to do that. I want this to be accessible to everybody. And when it says community inspired, you can share us with others. You can share your ideas. You can subscribe to our newsletter, you know, tell us about your events and how, you know, we can show up and support you that way. I am always looking for people to write, and Tripti has been great. I'm hoping she'll do something quarterly for us, kind of with the change of the seasons. Here comes
Pulling teeth. That's
yeah.
as long as you're good at pulling teeth.
Yeah, no, I'm getting really good at that. But anyway, there are no barriers to entry at Bucket List. It's just something we're putting out for the community and for the neighbors and the neighborhoods and stuff.
Thank- And so, yeah, that community inspired piece, I think this is a part that I think we should think about, like what's going on that we know of to share with her. I think the story that I wrote, it happened to be, she came by my house, saw like my front yard all tore up and asked questions like, what are you doing to your front yard? And I told her what I was doing and she asked me if I'd write a story about it. So it was like that, you know? So I think there are lots of ways that individuals or as an organization, we can partner with us. And I wanted to, you know, she's been working with me. I'm familiar with her and I wanted to share what it is that she does and how, as an RNO, we can partner with her in terms of what she's trying to do here.
And before I get to this, I wanted to, Tripti, why don't you go back to community inspired and community support? Thank you. You know, earlier in the pandemic, I was asked to do a story for NBC News Digital. So I wrote about Tennyson Street as a microcosm for what's going on in the country with regards to small businesses and how they're coping. And so our Tennyson Street ended up getting a story about it on the national NBC News Digital. And this weekend or this week, we're doing a story actually about the Ukrainian reaction in Colorado, the reaction of Ukrainian immigrants to Colorado to what's going on. And even though that's a big international story, we have a Ukrainian church in Sunnyside, and we visited it on Sunday to write a story about, you know, how this is affecting people in our neighborhood. So, you know, it may seem like not a big deal, but it's a big deal to people in the community. And so we're trying to just shine lights on those kind of stories.
And Vicki doesn't brag enough, which is what I said to her. She's an Emmy Award winning producer for NBC. So, you know, we're lucky to have her in our neighborhood wanting to focus on community and local and neighborhood level stories. And Vicki, thanks for reminding everybody that we do have a Ukrainian church in Sunnyside.
Anyway, this is a very soft ask, but as you guys, you know, work on your budgets for the years ahead, you know, if there's an opportunity to collaborate where we can help you and you can help us, I'd just be incredibly grateful. I'm trying to see. Tripti, can you go back to the slide? Yeah, thank you. If you visit our website, which is bucketlistcommunitycafe.com, there's a place to contribute. There's also a place to subscribe to our newsletter. I do need to let you know we're not a 501c3, we're entrepreneurs. And so it's not tax deductible, but it is, you know, an entrepreneurial project where we're trying to do something that sort of reinvents how community journalism is done. Not to take away from every other, you know, for other people who are doing community journalism like the Denver North Star, we don't have that kind of bandwidth to, you know, get deep into policy and into some of the larger issues that are facing the community, like David Sabatos does. You know, I look at us as complementing, you know, other publications like the Denver North Star and the Greater Park Hill News and, you know, Front Porch Northeast out in Central Park and the 5 Points Atlas. I like to think of us as collaborators and complementary.
Hey,
And
Vicki,
Yeah.
We have gone way over.
Sorry.
So no worries. What I would suggest, so Vicki did call us, what did she call us, the guinea pig? Because she developed this presentation for RNOs and that she was going to go talk to other RNOs as well to kind of talk about what she does and how they can partner with her. She can partner with them. So this is the first time she did the presentation. I definitely would suggest more than 10 minutes, Vicki, because I think we would for sure. So now you know, but does anybody have any quick questions or comments? And certainly if you want to just send questions to me or to the group, I think Vicki's on the agenda email. You can certainly just ask, or we can have her come back another time to do the Q&A, but we do need to move on. But if anybody's got any quick question or comment, we'll take one or two.
Yeah, and you could go to the last slide, Tripti. My contact information is there. And you can also see where you can find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and on the web. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm happy.
Everybody's got this presentation. So you have these pieces, and feel free to reach out with Vicki. She and I try to get together once a quarter for coffee, and we just kind of talk about what's happening in each of our worlds. And definitely, we have a lot of stuff going on in the land use area and development. And these are places that we can work with her to make sure the information gets out further than just our reach, but as far as possible.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm sorry it took.
Vicki, thank you, and I'm sorry, but I did, I couldn't cut you off.
You got work to do. You guys have work to do.
All right, thank you. We'll talk to you
Thanks.
later. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
All right, we're gonna do really quick committee updates because we haven't done one in a while. Let's start with Lindsay. Lindsay's got a couple of projects that she's working on that folks are not familiar with, and this would be a good time to just at least ask for others who might want to participate. So Lindsay, can you talk about the park project with Denver Park Trust?
Yeah. This all started because I was wondering why there wasn't a sidewalk around Chaffee Park, and now I'm here. So Denver Park Trust and the City of Denver have identified Sunnyside as one of their project spots. And so we are working with Denver Park Trust to come up with a project for them to help support. They've kind of told us $5,000 to start with, and if we can get some community involvement, we can get some more money. So we've got about 5 community members that are interested in being in part of like a steering committee, exploratory committee. And so if anyone else is interested in joining, what that committee is going to be doing is leading those efforts. We want to inventory what we have in our 5 parks and kind of identify some projects that could be a good fit, and then get input from the community around both what projects they'd be interested in, but also then voting on which project would be the best fit for Denver Park Trust and then the city to work on with us. Additionally, with that, I'm trying to get more community involvement. There'll be some community events with that, thinking like park cleanups and different pieces like that, like we've done with Park Trust in the past, but really getting some folks out and learning more about the parks and getting some of those improvements that we've, have been slowly working on and hopefully getting some more. And if you don't know, Sunnyside has 5 parks, not just 4. So just starting to get that awareness around all those facilities there and getting more community buy-in. So that committee, we're working on our first meeting date, which will be in the next 2 weeks. If you're interested in getting involved, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll get you on that list. Otherwise, there is going to be one last call for people that are interested going out in the newsletter here next week. Saturday. Oh my goodness, sorry, my brain's not working. So it should be kind of a fun way to get engaged. If you're not interested in like being part of the planning committee, there'll definitely be events and like other input as well. But definitely want to get some folks that are interested in taking part in that.
Well, thank you. Somebody had a question.
Yep. So Lindsay, this is Bill. Fantastic. And Denver Park Trust is a fantastic organization. I've met with them a couple of times about how we go about fundraising and visioning for a longer term park plan and how we go about making sure we get our share of the monies that are available from the city. And they're very excited about working with us. Is the scope of what you're looking at kind of incremental and short term, or are you looking for forming a committee that's going to be really visioning and long term and staying in place? I wasn't sure what your real objectives were.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is pretty short term and immediate. It's also like in the scheme of money, a fairly small amount of money. So what we've been told about is about $5,000. You know, we can definitely pull in a little bit more money other places, but projects get expensive fast when you're dealing with the city. So I think we'd be looking at something more long term too. Part of it is kind of seeing, what are people interested in being involved in. And so while it's starting kind of small, the small piece, I envision it going more long term. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, and I would simply say that if you start to skew longer term, I'd be very interested in being involved. There are actually a number of people I know in the community that are interested in how we can go about increasing our green space, not incrementally, but dramatically. And there's some interesting things out there that if I can be of any help or contribute, they're not incremental, they're more big picture, but fantastic. I really applaud what you're doing.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. And I was going to say, definitely that just reminded me, like, as we're looking at where that could be, is looping in also like sustainability committee and land use, because I know all of those pieces really like interconnect, and it definitely, if nothing more, just making sure we're all aware of what's going on and what opportunities are out there.
Yeah, so thank you. It started off because I saw a $5,000 grant. We also know that there's already about $1,000 or $2,000 placed with the trust that Monkey Barrel and Tito's raised with the last park cleanup. And we also have Parks and Rec supervisor at Aslan, super involved and interested. And then we also have NPI coming up. And then, we've got all the development in near the station area and people with properties, and so this is that larger term. But this one is definitely short term because we want to get people involved and we want something tangible and we want to, show completion on something. So this could be that we could have an ADA compliant swing. We can put something together. And really, even though we may only have $7,000, it's amazing. Apparently if the community shows interest to raise money and coalesce around something, the Denver Park Trust will help us move that further up the chain to getting stuff done with the Parks and Rec. So that's kind of how this all came about. I was already working with Denver Park Trust, and then Lindsay reached out because she was worried. She was like, why don't we have a sidewalk around Chaffee? And they're like, talk to Trupti. We're talking to her about, a project. So I think that's how, and so we found an owner in Lindsay to kind of take on the park and rec and really this project. But again, longer term would be the goal, is that there is going to be more money. And through the NPI process, we're working on even a much bigger thing, whether in Northwest Denver, whether that is something like a large rec center, if we can make that happen. So there's other conversations, Lindsay, that are going on that are even bigger than a particular project, and that some of it is through NPI. So definitely will loop you in, and I'm really excited to have an owner for this. And Lindsay, please jump in about, and this is actually, no, we'll talk about the website when we get to the priorities. On membership though, because that's another area you're kind of working on. Can you share a little bit about, what you've maybe kind of come up with, or kind of what's next step on? We originally talked about business and resident value proposition as something that we would want to develop and then publish on our website. Have you put any more thought on that?
Yeah, I think this all kind of loops back into that website conversation, because we talked about, hey, there's some really, really cool things we could be doing. We want to make sure we're utilizing the website, kind of hit a stop at where my abilities were there. So definitely continuing to move forward. But really with taking membership, and having two different pieces, which we already do, one for businesses and one for members or residents. And then with businesses, really selling a value prop of how we can drive business there. So instead of doing you're going to give 10% off to members, looking at either a specific month or a specific event that they could host. Again, this is going to get into events committee. So if you're like, holy crud, what is she talking about? Don't go crazy. I understand there's a lot of folks that we got to get in this boat. But with businesses, really, that driving force of, hey, we will promote your stuff. We can use our social media to promote your events, which is actually helpful. What Vicki was just presenting with her metrics and pieces. But then also, utilizing that sponsorship is either they can do a sponsorship where they can have a piece of sponsorship for all of our events or a specific event as well. And then with members, kind of taking it from this is what you get from being a member to this is what your membership does and how you get to support the community, and really pushing that aspect. And then kind of with both of these areas, for businesses driving people to you, and for members, hey, come meet your neighbors, come see the businesses around the area. So those are kind of the two different looks we're taking at it. And one big piece that it kind of comes together in is a business map. If you've kind of been around, I know there's a couple different versions of it where we can share it with visitors, we can share it with locals, and businesses can use to say, hey, we now have a really, we've got some really cool retail corners coming up. We've got all these really great shops. We've got new dispensaries coming in. We've got, great restaurants. So let's show those off. Let's not to hate on Highlands at all, but let's keep folks that are coming to stay in Sunnyside at our Airbnbs and in our homes and our businesses. Let's keep them here to support our local businesses. And so making sure we're getting that information out. So those are kind of the broad pictures. And then for next meeting, I can definitely send out a write-up of everything, so it's not so conceptual and a little bit more people can start tearing it apart and looking at it.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to want. And thank you. I wanted folks to know that we're kind of working on this. We're on the value proposition pieces of how to distinguish and differentiate. And Lindsay has a background in nonprofit and program management. So this is in her wheelhouse in terms of the type of thing you'd have to do. So I'm so glad Lindsay's on it. She's taken up the park piece because that's a passion project of hers as well, and helping us on the membership. And she and I need to still onboard for treasury, but I haven't been able to connect with her, but that's okay. We're going to get there. So she has taken on quite a bit, and I'm really grateful for her participation on our board. Let's move to land use, because I think that's the other big topic, at least for committee updates. I don't even see I don't even see Dawn or Lenny, our events committee, on this meeting. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to cover any of that without their participation. But Bobby, on land use, and we've got a couple of things that are moving. So Bobby's working on a lot of stuff, a lot of development, and the land use folks are starting to see either bylaws, policy procedures, design guidelines, but we also have put in the excise and license into the land use committee, where it actually, it belongs, because it is a land use issue, excise and license. So we have both Mike and Bobby. Mike, I'm going to let you go first because I think yours is the shortest in terms of the GNA stuff. If you can share with us what you're currently working on, because the folks on this board do not know that. Mike?
Thanks, Troopy.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Happy Monday. We had a warm day today. It was good. So we've kind of bifurcated, and I think Bobby can talk a little bit more about that, into GNAs for development projects for new buildings and such, as far as that goes for GNAs, and then retail businesses. And most of those are probably, liquor related or marijuana related at this point, to just make sure that, people are being good neighbors. I mean, we have a neighborhood and we're doing that. So don't have a whole lot going on right now. I mean, the only one is that Radiator has applied, or is in the process of applying for a hotel and restaurant license to be able to serve liquor. They've already, been serving wine and beer for a long time. They're just trying to up that. So we just want to make sure with their outdoor space and all that, that we get a GNA in place. So we put together a GNA. It's in the land use group. I'm sorry, it's not in land use right now. I'll move it over there, but it's in the SUNY file if you want to take a look at it, or you can just shoot me an email if you want to see it. But we have a template that we try to use so we can have some more consistency around what we're asking these businesses to do. And, you know, they talk to each other, they're part of the community, and we don't want one business to have a different rules than another business if we can help it. Especially if they're involved in the same type of business. So I'll be meeting with Karen in Thursday, I guess it is. Yeah, Thursday to go over with him the GNA proposal. We'll see if there's any modifications or things that he isn't in agreement with. And then as long as he's in agreement or we can come to a consensus between us, then we will support his application to the Excise and License Board. And one of the things that we're doing is we're also asking, especially with liquor and cabaret and those types of things, that some of these things be actually printed on the license face so that there's a little more teeth to the GNA than just having a letter that's signed by us and them. But I think that's the only, I mean, we've been talking to a few other people, but right now that's the only real active one. And Drupti, I don't know if you have any other
Oh,
comments.
thank you. Thank you. Well, you know, I'm appreciative and grateful for Mike, you know, who volunteered to take on this piece and be the owner. And, you know, we've talked to Kieran a couple times. We talked to Kieran before he even opened. James and I walked by. They knew all along we would be seeking a GNA. So, you know, they're used to it. They have one, you know, they live in the neighborhood. They're going to be here for a long time. So I don't foresee any problems. And the issue with that on the face of the license, you only have that opportunity when a new license is sought. So let's just assume Kieran sells his business in 2 years from now. When he sells his business with the liquor license. We do not have an opportunity to go negotiate and change it unless they wanted to or they were willing to. But so for instance, Sunnyside Supper Club that used to be Ernest Hall, the liquor license went right to the new owner. There isn't the opportunity to put it on the face of the license. The face of the license means it has teeth. There, you know, there's enforcement. So with these guys, they had beer and wine. Now it's moving to a full liquor, and that's why we have an opportunity. So just so in case folks weren't aware of that. So Mike, the one thing I would ask or be prepared for, and I will look for some stuff, and you can look for it too. With them, they're not going for a cabaret, but they're doing a lot of things, comedians, trivia, etc. And I think we as the GNA and Sunny, we need to be educated on what it means to have a cabaret or what's included in the cabaret. Here's where I think this would be important. I fully expect to get a email or text from Monkey Barrel asking, do these people have a cabaret license? Because I hear they're doing events, you know? So that might be a conversation you might want to have with Kieran saying, hey, you know, but first we want to educate ourselves on what is included in the special event license and a cabaret license, because maybe they're just doing this, you know, under the radar, and that's on them to do whatever, right? We're not trying to tell them what to do, but I would fully expect someone like Monkey Barrel to ask us, well, hey, are you, you know, do they have a special event permit? So I would just have that conversation to make sure he's familiar. And if we can educate them a little bit about what's included, because it could be like amplified sound, you know, or something, but it may not be just anything. And I'm not familiar with it right now to even say it, but I would have that little bit of a conversation about how those things fall and whether he plans on getting a permit for it.
Sure.
Anybody
Will do.
question for GNA excise and license? The other conversation we had, and Mike, I don't know if you know this or you probably do. We talked to Crowbar. That's on 44th before Sheridan. They are moving into the Highland Sport and Spine, and they signed the lease. They haven't put an application in, but we had a conversation with them already, and they were going to be totally open to a GNA. So when that happens, if it happens, Mike will be on point. We don't have that application coming through yet, but that seems like it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, we met with him and talked about it, and he seemed pretty open. He just wants to have a chill kind of bar. So yeah, we'll approach that as that comes up.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anybody with questions for GNA one more time before we move on? All right. Hey, Bobby, let's talk about land use development. There's a lot going on, and let's give it a little bit of time. So
Sure.
Tell us what's going on and fill everybody in, because we haven't had a community, we haven't had an update from committees in a bit.
Sure. So land use is working on kind of some big picture, long-term items. And the goal of it is to not only, work on kind of the development pieces of what we want our neighborhood to be, but we're also trying to kind of solidify what our process is and what our standard operating procedures are for, our committee in terms of, are we being very clear and explicit and consistent with developers and what we're asking of them? And also being clear and transparent with the community on what our process is, how they can be involved, how they can comment in a number of ways to make sure that their voice is being heard in our forum or at zoning board or at city council, what have you, to just kind of make our process really smooth with what we're doing, to kind of focus on kind of not only the destination we're trying to get to, but the vehicle in how we get there. So kind of the three big things we're working on is, first and foremost is we're working on bylaws for the SUNY Land Use Committee. We've never had official bylaws. We've kind of had certain ways of doing things throughout the years. But what we really want to do is get, bylaws down so that people, both the developers coming in and the community, are very clear as to what our process is, how we conduct business, who is the decision maker, how are votes taken, how many meetings a developer needs to come to get something done, and also clarifying, how community members get input and interact with our forum. So working on bylaws, we've talked together as a committee of kind of a first rough draft. We're probably going to, at the next land use meeting, put that out for kind of community comment and input, just as is still in a draft form, get community feedback, and then meet together as a committee again, give it, a lot of round for written comments from the community if people couldn't make our actual meeting, to get their input, and then kind of put it out again for kind of a second go around for community input and discussion, and then kind of think about finalizing from there. So the bylaws is one thing. The other things we're thinking about doing.
Bobby, just to make sure on the bylaws, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, after we kind of run it through the core group, right now we have 5, we probably have a 6-person coming on, and we're hoping to move to a 9-person a land use committee, which is the voting body in a sense. But back to the bylaws, after we kind of run it through the core group, we ask for community input, we kind of finalize again with the core group, then the goal would be to have it brought to the board for approval and adoption. I just want to make sure, because we talked about that, I think, and I want to make sure that we're clear on that piece.
Right, that's correct. So it would eventually come here for this group to kind of have another round of deliberating, discussion, debate, to make sure we're kind of hashing everything out, dotting our I's, crossing our T's, and to kind of, be the final eyes on what we're doing there.
Thank you. You were moving into something else when I interrupted.
Right. So, and a little probably further along down the pipeline past the bylaws is, there is so much going on in the neighborhood in terms of involvement, especially in the 41st and Fox station area. And what we would like to do is, instead of kind of waiting until a project developer comes along with the zoning change request or something to that effect, we want to be more proactive with, kind of visioning on what we want to have in this district that really goes beyond Blueprint Denver or the station area plan, and kind of gets into more detail with, you know, what we as a community expect from projects and developers, not only with, you know, the actual end goal of the project, but how we want that process to work, of, you know, how a process goes through the development phases. And so we're working on, we're not sure if we're going to call it a development guide or a design guide, but the name's up in the air, but basically it's kind of, it goes through kind of the big pots we have as a community of what are the big things we want to be focusing on with these projects. One aspect maybe being design, the other aspect being, you know, how are neighbors notified when a project comes up, and how do those neighbors get input into a project? Other things being, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion. How are we making sure, you know, we're getting a good mixed use development, and we're, you know, we're focusing on impacts and negative things that could come out with the development, and also kind of some sustainability things, you know, how is transportation working? How is the energy use of a building affecting things around it? Those sorts of things, but kind of the high level items to not only get the product that we want as a community, but to also make it really clear to a developer, here's what we're expecting. You know, we don't want a developer to be coming to our meetings and kind of just be playing whack-a-mole with whatever question might come up at a meeting. We kind of want to focus more on the high level items to where they know what they need to do to build a good project that's going to get community support. And so that's kind of the
Bobby, what I want to add there is these are conversations to have with the community so that we have these larger guidelines. Okay, so it's not a small group of people who are making up the rules. These are the types of, and this is the being proactive about, you know, that. So it's, for instance, on every land use meeting, one of the things that Bobby's focusing on is leaving 15 minutes for discussion. It has nothing to do with a particular project, but it may have something to do with a discussion as a community about what it wants, right? So we start doing more of this to help us understand what are the mandates, right? And then those mandates are the types of things that get included into this documentation that we keep and we share with developers about, here's the discussions we had, here's what we heard, here's what the community said is important to them. So when they come to us, we're able to share this with them. And so this is an important piece, which is today we don't do that, or today, well, we hadn't done that. We're starting to do that. But this is where, you know, a lot of times it's who shows up and what questions they ask in terms of what direction something goes. And we want to get away from that and really talk about larger issues. Like I think we're talking about ADUs coming up in the next particular meeting, but in the same way, we could be talking about transportation. We could be talking about infrastructure. We could be talking about energy and all of these, or walkable neighborhoods or whatever it is. And these are the types of things that as we collect this information, it's easier for us to share with developers what the community has said they wanted. And that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to actually ask the community what they want and then share it with the developers. So it's not happening in a vacuum, even though we're kind of working on this at the same time we're talking to developers, because projects aren't holding up for the community to talk about them first. Projects are coming up. And we have to make decisions or provide support or the opposition. So it's something that's happening kind of simultaneously, but that's the big picture.
Right. Yeah, all of these things are being done in a way where, you know, we're working as, you know, representatives to make sure that the community's goals are put down on paper and expressed to the people we're interacting with, the city developers, and that we're, you know, this is a community grassroots driven process to where, you know, we're polishing up and putting into form what the community has told us that they want. And to get into kind of the third piece of how these things kind of all interact together is we just recently at our last meeting completed 2 good neighbor agreements with 2 developers, but you know, and we're new to this, so we're kind of learning as we go. and we've had some discussions with city officials about, what the best practice is, but what we're trying to do is develop a form GNA, just the same thing with the liquor licenses and things like that, for a form GNA that's geared towards larger scale developments, like what we're seeing on East Sunnyside, to where we're kind of taking what our goals and priorities are going to be and kind of just putting it all in a form, so that we're not starting from scratch each time one of these things comes along. And this is also one of those things where we're kind of developing drafts now, but it's going to go to the community to get input on, what should be in these things, what should not be in these things, and in terms of design aspect standards, affordable housing requirements, because, when the goal here really is that, as Truppi kind of noted earlier with the liquor licenses, it's the same thing here, where when someone comes to us, wants support for rezoning, they can go get it rezoned. And once it's rezoned, they could totally change the design, development, renderings that they showed us at our meeting to something completely different. So what this good neighbor agreement allows us to do is get into writing, you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And if you want to make some changes, you need to come back to us and discuss again. And we're going to be flexible with, the design process and how things work. We're not being hard and fast with anything, but it's really kind of putting down on paper and getting, a contractual guarantee that, when a developer comes to us and says, we're going to do all these things and we're going to do A, B, and C of these hot ticket items that's going to benefit the community. That's great if somebody tells us that in a meeting, but if it's not written down on paper in an agreement, there's no way to really enforce that. So that's what this good neighbor agreement is going to do for us. And those are kind of the big three things we're working on right now. Just in terms of process, we started this last month, but what our process is going to be is meeting in an executive session committee the week before the land use committee to finalize the agenda, talk about big picture items and planning, because we really want to be using the meeting as a time to go through business and be talking with the community about these big picture items, transportation, otherwise. So that's kind of what we're doing going from there. And as Truppi said, we have 5 on the committee right now, and we really would like to kind of bump that up to 7 or 9 to kind of get a nice diverse group of people working on things. And I think that's kind of what I got.
And then the last update I'm going to ask you to, well, I'll just give it. So with Fox Park, right? Fox Park is, the issue is that they want to build a bridge, a auto bridge to a north-south connection, but that north-south could go east-west with us in order to get to the north-south. And they're doing a feasibility study. Bobby and I just got an email this week we talked to them about a month, maybe 2 months ago, and we had this conversation about the outreach that they're going to do, the communities that they're going to involve, the groups that they're going to outreach to. Got an email this week asking whether folks, the leadership here is available in March. And so we expect to know a little bit more, but the goal or issue is going to be that they're doing a feasibility study that can answer specifically, like if they're building this bridge and you say, well, where exactly is this bridge going to be? How wide and big is it going to be? Well, that's back to this feasibility study. So without that study, we don't need to have conversations that are just, kind of visionary. I think the people who are impacted by these decisions are going to have very specific questions. So we ask them to tell us when they'll be ready for information like that. So I expect at the end of March to hear where they are on that feasibility study and to start planning the community outreach. And they're going to be reaching out to Gloville, LRA, Swansea. They're going to be reaching out to Chaffee, GES Coalition, and our group at the very least, because I think we're all touch points onto this intersection that is going to be happening. So we'll know a little bit more on Fox Park after. I think we'll have that meeting before the next board meeting, so we'll be able to share on Fox Park. So that's another big item that I think a lot of people would be interested in. So that's that's the update there. I'm going to open it up for questions on the stuff that Bobby went through.
Bobby, I just wanted to say to the board that the initiatives that you've got going and the work that you've done is fantastic. It really is come a long way very quickly. And I was really glad in your presentation to hear, to use your phrase, first and foremost is the bylaws, because really what the critical element is getting that group of 7 or 9, however many it is, getting that codified. And you know I feel strongly about that, but that to me is the critical issue that's been missing for a long time that'll make it more effective. So kudos.
Anyone else? And I would love to hear from other folks because, I mean, Katie, if I can put you on the spot, you know, Katie, a few months ago, she and I were talking about just, you know, SUNI and stuff and just catch up, because I try to catch up with most people. You had said something like you didn't find our land use committee very inviting. And I wanted to hear a little bit more about that. And I think this is really important because, Katie, if you're feeling it, other people are feeling this. And I would love to hear, you know, kind of why, because we want to change that. So if you are open to just sharing, because there's no secrets here, you know, if you can share with us kind of why you got that feeling, and if you have any ideas of like, how can we make that better? I think this is really good input, and I would love to hear that from everyone else too. So, but Katie mentioned that to me, and I want to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. So I think we had this conversation not long, or like talking about Monkey Barrel's Good Neighbor Agreement and all of the stuff that went on with those meetings. And I think being relatively new to the neighborhood and relatively new to RNOs in general, I felt like the work that the land use committee did was kind of overwhelming, and the number of projects, and so many of these projects that are taken on are long-term. They extend over at the very least months. And so when you're coming in, it's really hard to get picked up into what's going on with the project, but also I feel like, you know, it's hard to know what a typical process might look like, right? So in the sense of, you know, a good neighbor agreement or something like that, like how it's connected to a liquor license and where that comes in. And one of the things that I really like, as I've looked at it several times, that Bobby's put together, is kind of that shared Google Drive where you can go in and look at, here are the projects, here's what's going on. And one thing that I would love to see is for the types of projects that are discussed there, what is the kind of timeline looking like? Not necessarily specifics, but, you know, when a developer's coming in, here's when they're going to be talking about this, and these are the steps that are going through, and here's when it comes to the RNO, and here's when it goes to the city, and those types of things, just so that felt like we could be a part of things. And so I felt like on the Monkey Barrel stuff, I had some thoughts on the Monkey Barrel stuff, but I knew there was a lot else going on within the committee that I just had no idea what that was or where that was. And it felt difficult to get caught up when you're coming in the middle. But I think one of the things that we always have to account for is the fact that people in our neighborhood are always going to be essentially coming in and out of anything that we're working on, and we shouldn't expect anyone to be as up to date and knowledgeable about what we're doing as we are. And I think that land use is really important, but it's also probably one of the hardest to get caught up with.
Thank you, Katie. I you know, excellent. I mean, immediately as you're saying this, what I'm hearing is like education and sharing more. In fact, it's funny you mentioned the timeline thing, and you haven't seen this yet, but Bobby has actually put together what a timeline for a development thing looks like. And we've added a lot more things because we're asking them for more. than we did before, which means you come to us, you fill out an application, you tell us where you're at, then you're going to come to us and we're going to expect you to do outreach to your surrounding neighbors. Then, which includes, here you go, which includes the next meeting where you're going to present that everybody you told you're going to come there, they have an opportunity to come. Now, granted, people don't show up. Until people have a problem, they don't show up. But the point is that, it's important. So that timeline is really good. And the education is a big part of it. And this is back to, I think the feedback, I want to hear more about how we can be better at sharing more information that is helpful to the community. So I really appreciate, you saying that. And I think you're not the only one who feels that way, because unless you're in it all the time, it would be hard. And like, not now, but Joseph, I'm going to call you out in about a month and be like, Joseph, why is this so hard? Please tell us, how can we do better? But I think if people who share what doesn't work with the folks that need to know, that's going to be the only way we can fix those things. So I think that is great. I think education is a big part of it. And and it won't happen right away because there's so much going on. But let's say a year from now, if we have either modules and more information, like here's the life of a GNA. And in fact, I think Mike started with a, what do you call that thing, Mike? Mike, you started with
what?
Oh, come on! When it comes in here, I'm having a brain fart with it's a process, right? Yes and no question. It goes to the next thing.
Oh, yeah.
What is that called?
Flow chart.
Flow chart. So Mike actually started like a flow chart of GNAs, right? And I think this is the type of thing that if we are developing this, and part of it is we're developing it for ourselves. We're developing for the community. We're developing it for the board members that come after us. I mean, to me, that's what this all is, right? So that's flow chart of like, here's the life of a GNA. How does this happen? We get a notification from the city, or we know somebody is going to be doing a liquor license. We start that conversation. Then we move through these processes. So I think that type of thing is where I would like, if we have the support of the committee leads that are working on this, to have this level of information made available. And of course, it's only good if we can put it out there for the community. And the website we have plans on that too. But Mike did work on a flow chart. And I think that's the kind of thing that, Katie, I think you're talking about, which would make it easier, not just for the board, but for the community at large. Thank you for letting me call you out. Anybody else have
I was just gonna, to say something really quick, Shruti. I think on top of what Katie said, I think education was huge. The whole reason I got involved with everything was because of the Monkey Barrel piece. And I know that was very passionate. I know the Fox Street development's very passionate. I find some of the people to be very rude on the calls and don't follow any sort of like meeting standards. So I was just, the only reason I bring this up is I was on a call for a dog park. There's lots of feelings all over the place, but the host held control of muting and unmuting people. And then if people wanted to say something, they raised their hands. And so they could see in that order. And it seemed to go pretty well, but it wasn't like people blurting out and screaming on top of each other or blaming people for different things. So that was just something I would say, like with the bylaws, like on top of education, like make it inviting so people want to participate and not like, oh, it's an angry neighbor or an angry somebody else or someone that's super unsupportive and just kind of fighting with each other.
And actually, Bobby is more versed in Robert's rules, and and I invite all of you guys to actually come to our his land use meetings and see, and I'd love more feedback. But yes, we're working on that as well, because that is what happens, right? I mean, I've seen our council person go off on people, which was completely inappropriate. And she should have been called out, to be perfectly honest, because that's not acceptable from her or anybody, but Bobby's working on that too. And I think, we kind of have this, let's build it and people will come, and it's happening, So you're right. The more inviting and cordial we make this, the better it's going to be. But also impactful, right? Not being impactful is useless. I mean, people drop off because nothing happens. They don't see what's happening afterwards. They never got a follow-up. They never got, what came of the conversation I was in. So I think all of those things are really important. So, and I invite you all to send Bobby.
And if I could just step in here for a second, Trippi, I think another thing, touching on this education and how we conduct business piece, we really have an obligation as our group to kind of set the example of how does a process work to where, our process should be somewhat similar to zoning board or city council, where people understand the process in a very low stakes, inviting environment where they can kind of see how things work here so that we can enable them to go to those other places and do things as well. So that's another piece, is a goal of ours.
No, and we can't get into this, but there are aspects of how you vote on land use that are really important that, I think Bobby can share on future meetings and once he shares kind of some of the bylaws, but I think they're really instrumental in well, how everybody's voice is heard, but how you then take all of that and assimilate it as well. So I know we're really short on time. So does anybody else have any questions? I don't see any other committee leads here right now. Joseph is going to lead our, marketing, but he and I are still, working together. And, it's my fault because I don't have enough time myself, but Joseph's going to be doing the marketing. So I plan on working with him a little bit more on the marketing. He has access to post on Facebook, I believe. And is there any other questions here? Now, we have no one from the events committee. I got a text saying Dawn was sick, and that was Lenny saying Dawn came home sick. So there's nothing going on there. But we have an important event that we need to figure out what are we doing about it? And that is our annual election. And I don't know how to do all these things if events folks are not here or participating or doing the work in between meetings. So for annual meeting, that would be at the end of April. And we do have one more meeting coming up before that. And the calendar is the only other thing. And here, I'm really just interested in trying to figure out how many events we have and how many general membership meetings we have. So I'm just let's just have an open forum on this because we don't have anybody who has ideas of what to do here. So on the annual meeting, what are we thinking here? Live, virtual, send out ballots ahead of time on SurveyMonkey, do paper ballots day of. What are we thinking on the annual meeting?
Trippi, I'm thinking I think it'd be a good goal to kind of do things the way we do it with land use and then this board as well, where it's more of a digital online format where, the election in and of itself can go out via SurveyMonkey and poll, but then we also have an event where it's less of a business meeting, more of a social recruiting sort of a thing, where we also have the option of, or an old person in the community don't have a computer, come vote here at the computer on our SurveyMonkey. We'll walk you through it, or here's the QR code to vote. That sort of a thing. That way, we're kind of hitting
hybrid. We do a hybrid, but the very first thing that we need to decide is, are we going to have a live meeting? On our last board meeting, we did not have consensus on whether we should have a live meeting and what requirements we would have of that live meeting. I think the thought was two things. One, the vaccine, the mask mandate hadn't dropped. However, it was already quite, discretionary for the business to do or not do for the most part, because they could check a vaccine passport. Now that is also dropped, and we tabled this waiting for the mask mandate to drop. The mask mandate has dropped now. We need to determine whether we're going to do live meetings and follow city, state, CDC guidelines, maybe the whoever's the most strictest, or we as a group, before every event, are going to make a decision on how we want to do this. And that is I think that's one of the crux of the piece is, are we going to do events live? What are the requirements? And so let's think about that. But the very first event we need to think about really quickly is going to be the annual meeting. And that's at the end of April. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm concerned because our events folks are not engaged at this point, and we don't have folks already working on the marketing, because you'd have to be, and I know, Bill, thank you. You volunteered to take on some of the tasks, and you never heard back from the events group of, yes, please do that for us, or no, or we have different ideas. We have not heard nothing. So we need to make decisions on the annual meeting, and I'm open to whatever it is this group of people, this group wants to do. So can we have that conversation really quickly, even if the rest of the calendar can wait? I think this is the most important thing.
I will say one thing, DPS is still requiring masks in the buildings for events. It is the requirement for caucus going on this week for the political parties. So I assume it'll be for other groups as well. So that is just, I want to throw that out, that they are still requiring masks in schools for groups using their buildings.
And that's excellent. If we use their building and they still, then they're renting it out, obviously. And if we should go through Amanda Sandoval's office, because instead of us paying $25 and buying 1 day of insurance, City Council has access to the DPS schools for free. So we would just ask, City Council to organize this particular date for us. And maybe that date is the one date that we need to think about. And we follow whatever guidelines the school has if this group wants to do a live annual election. I'm looking at a couple things.
I was typing in my thoughts because I know there's multiple people. I like the idea of doing it live. I know there's been a ton of people that have moved to this neighborhood in the last 2 years. Me being, part of it is like, it starts about like talk about, hey, there's something going on. But if we can do it hybrid, I love that idea of like, hey, come vote in person or learn in person, and you have 3 days to vote or whatever we decide, so we can do it both ways. And then I say for like, I caught the end of the mask conversation last time. We've all been dealing with this forever. It's got to be an event by event thing, unfortunately, because things just change too quickly.
And venue by venue.
Yeah, venue by venue, event by event. DPS makes it easy. We don't get a choice. We know what we have to do.
Right.
I think it's still like the number participant based for that.
Well, that's an important consideration, because and people may not show up because they're still, concerned. But in 2019, which was the last time we had I think we had like 150 people, which is a great turnout, for us. But if there is a number that we can't go over, it would be important for us to know that.
Yeah, I think that would just be that. And then the final thing I would say is, I'm willing to help. I have no idea what needs to happen. I've never been involved in it before. So I think, I know it's a lot on the events committee and laying a lot on folks who've been around for a while, but if like we know actually what we need to do, I think that'll be helpful to know how we can help and how we can like volunteer to do stuff.
I have that list of things in terms, I think where we're starting to run out of time is that we need marketing material and we have to determine a marketing plan. The marketing plan in the past has been that we print a postcard, we find sponsors, like business sponsors who will pay for some stuff. We find, free pizza, whatever, and this gets mailed. So we have got to create a design, we've got to get it printed, and then we have to do bulk mailing to 5,000. Another option is, we still have to create some kind of marketing. We could have flyers sent out versus mailing. And that changes the amount of work we have to do. The mailing takes a lot more work because you have to organize by the little groupings, and count them, put them into groups for bulk mailing. And flyers are actually a little easier, slightly less expensive, but almost a wash there. So we have to figure out the marketing plan, and we got to move backwards from when we want that to go out. We want it to go out at least 3 weeks in advance. And we got to look into how long mailing, if there's any delays, whereas somebody who does a door hang, we have a pretty good, like they're all doing it on this day or over this weekend. So there's the marketing plan aspect. There is who's paying for what, and are we going to just pay for it, or are we going to try to find sponsors, right? And without people already having jumped on this and working towards this stuff, like we may be in that position, right? Of just deciding that we're going to pay the money it takes. That is usually around $2,000 in marketing, and think about free pizza, soda, snacks, gifts and giveaways. That's usually what the total is going to be, probably somewhere close to $3,000. So we spend that money or we go find money. So all of those things are kind of the moving parts here. And it would need to be, stuff would need to happen within what, like the first week of April? All of this would need to be secured and out the door in a sense. Like if we've got sponsors, because those sponsors expect, marketing on the postcard, right? If they're giving us money, it's because they're giving us money for something, and it would need to be secured before the printing takes place, right? So we're looking at somewhere at the end of March for having all of that stuff done. That's kind of the timeline. That's kind of the process. But anyway, so what is everybody thinking for this annual meeting? Live, and who's going to pay for everything? Are we going to go find sponsors? Who's going to fundraise? Or are we going to spend money we saved? I mean, either one is fine, but those are the decisions that have to be made. So about $3,000 if we want to do all of those things like we've kind of done in the past. And the timeline is all of this has to be done. I mean, if we don't have to raise money, that makes it that much easier, right? We don't need to look for sponsors. That means we can just create marketing, and we don't have anybody's logo or coupon or whatever. We don't have to ask, and that doesn't have to happen. But we would still need to get it out to the printer, probably by the last week of March. Whatever the marketing is. So last week of March. So we're working within 1 month timeline of making this happen.
Tripti, I'm fine with spending as opposed to fundraising for advertisements and things like that. As opposed for the advertising piece, I don't know. I don't know what's been done previously, but would it just
mailing?
Yeah, would it be easier to spend the same amount of money we previously spent on mailers and go with print a number of just print signs to put up in local businesses, and then do Facebook advertising as opposed to, because that's all digital. We don't have to send it to a printer, get all that done.
Last time we did digital, we had almost no one show up. And that was actually the pandemic year. Like in 2020, instead of doing a meeting in April, we were all just like stunned. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And it was like October, I think, that we did a, annual election, and we put a small ad in the newspaper. It was very inexpensive, and we otherwise just did it digitally. We did a Survey Monkey. We had 30 people, I believe, respond to the Survey Monkey, and on the call, we had like 13, probably 10 of them were the board members. So we did not have, a good turnout at all from either one of those things. But that's not to say, today the same thing would happen. I think everybody was kind of in shock at that time and nobody gave a shit. So we can decide to do digital. We can do yard signs. I think we have time for all that stuff. Someone has to create the marketing for those things. And if we're not doing it, and then are we doing in person? If we're doing in person, I think there's this food and, a little programming type of thing. So yeah, you know what? Can somebody put a motion out there to spend the money to do this? It's out, like 3K is kind of.
I'll make that motion. Motion to spend up to 3K to finance annual meeting needs. So either be securing venue, advertising, and food.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, now can we take, Emma, please, can we do a roll call vote on this budget item?
Yes, yes, and I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Sorry, it was me, Lindsay.
And actually, you know what, before that, does anybody have anything else to say or discuss before we just move to the roll call vote? Does anybody have comments or amendments to that? All right,
Okay.
hearing none.
Bobby,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
I have to look at my brain. Katie,
Yes.
thank you. Mike,
Yes.
Joseph,
Joseph, thank you. It's just hard to go back and forth.
Yes.
then I think it's you and me, Emma.
UT,
I'm a yes.
so am I.
Okay.
I got everybody, right?
Yeah, and Bill's not there, but we've got 7 people. I believe that's already a quorum for our group.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good on that. So yes, we're going to go ahead and do this. Now, the bigger issue is, what do we do without an events committee that is participating, And Lindsay, you said you'd help out?
Yeah, I can help out. We can add that to our thing. I think my thought was the next thing we need to do is figure out a date and then.
Yeah, let's figure that out right now too. We've in the past, what we've done is Thursdays. Thursdays seem to be the best day. So this is going to be the last week of April, Thursday. Let's make sure it doesn't conflict with like opening day at Broncos or something like that. So that's one of the things that we've thought about in the past. So looking at the date, all right, April, the last week in April, and we could do it the 3rd or the 4th week. I think either one is doable if we need to change it. The last week in April starts the 25th. The 28th would be the Thursday. Does anybody know whether 28th is opening day, draft picks, anything like that? It's not, it's not Easter, right? Like those are the kind of thing. It's not a holiday.
Opening day is the 8th of April. So it's before then. I know right now that'll be playoff seasons for Nuggets, and no one goes to the Nuggets game anyway. So as of now, I'm gonna look and see if there's like a Denver community calendar.
Yeah, the 21st or 28th. And I don't think we want to, it's kind of difficult to have we don't want a rain date on this situation. I mean, we could get snowed out, obviously. A blizzard could hit. So if we're working in that environment, the 21st is a Thursday the week before, and 28th is the blizzard date, but
I say we go with the 28th because it gives us the most time and we do it hybrid. So if there's a snow out, it doesn't matter. We just switch to completely virtual.
Okay. Anybody have any objections with doing exactly that, which is in person, 28th at Smedley, and if there's a blizzard, we go to virtual. I know. After we send postcards to 5,000 people, that's hard.
I think that's great, and I agree that let's give us as much time as possible.
Well, I have not been involved before, but if we're going to do a hybrid meeting, that's obviously going to
I think the
require
voting is
a
hybrid.
little bit more.
I think the voting is hybrid, which means we'll open up the vote via SurveyMonkey and leave it open for a few days, either before or after, and we can decide that next month. But it's the voting that's hybrid. So even if you don't show up, you could still vote.
Okay, so we're not going to broadcast the meeting at the same time.
No, we haven't figured that out
That's
yet.
a technical nightmare, so no.
Well, no, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
No, we're not doing that.
no, we could technically record it, but like, I think we just go, you either
Well,
show
no,
up or
we
you.
are
get
gonna,
your-
yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're right. We're not gonna record it if it's live.
Yeah, so.
I'm good with that. So 28th, anybody have objections on the 28th? All right, as far as our events crew leading this, I will, Lindsay, connect you with Dawn and Lenny, who are our events folks, and see how, everybody can take, a piece of this. Bill has offered to help, and this really is a all hands on kind of meeting. We need somebody at the door that checks people in, somebody, and actually Lindsay, if anything, you'll be selling membership. If anything, you'll be the treasurer, and a lot of people buy membership. When it's live, majority of our memberships are purchased that day when people show up. So you'll be running the PayPal, credit card, that kind of thing. So I think that's kind of where you're going to be focused. I will work on the annual report piece of it. In terms of programming, we could have programming or not have programming. We can leave programming as simple as the annual report and committee, updates, and what next year, what we've accomplished last year and what next year looks like. What are you guys thinking as far as programming? If we can find people and do stuff, fine. But if not, that is kind of the bare minimum that we have control over.
I like that, and I think we could do it as almost like a get involved. Like we're doing all these new things. We just talked about with the committees. Is like, hey, here's how you get involved. Here's what's going on.
Yeah.
And we don't need someone to come talk about here. Get to do that.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Between free food or dinner and just our committee updates and outreach and ability for all of us to talk to people, right, and answer their questions, I think that's sufficient as well. So I don't think we need to do much more programming. We do kind of need a bit of a annual report that talks about each of our, committees and what we did last year and what 2022 kind of looks like. And it doesn't have to be super hard. So I think that is sufficient. And it's 8:15. We're probably not going to get to anything else. The one thing I do want to talk about or throw out there, and I will send you the proposal, is we've talked about the website being a priority lots of times, and we've talked about it for years. And for years, we're hoping that we could find a volunteer, and we've had 3, 4, 5 over the last 2 years, but no one's really come through. I talked to Red Egg Marketing. They're in Sunnyside. They actually, the owner lives in Sunnyside. They're the ones who host our website today to ask for a proposal for what a new website design would cost. And I will send that proposal to this group after this. It was $5,000. And then there would still be some annual fees for especially a subscription to a membership portal. And then Katie's been, sorry, not Katie, Lindsay's been working on looking at some requirements. She's taken a deep dive into our website to talk about to think about what we need, what's missing. So some requirements. And she was also looking to see if we can reach out to Regis or try to figure out if a capstone project or something like that is possible. So Lindsay, two minutes. Do you have anything on that in terms of outreach?
Yeah, definitely. So to do a capstone project, we have to, a student has to choose us, and we have to put our proposal out on their website. So we can do that, definitely. Kind of talking with folks, capstone students are great. That's fantastic. If this is something that we really want to make a priority, I feel like we should move forward with the, we're paid, not that we wouldn't pay a student, but we're paying you, here's a deliverable, here's a timeline I need to hit. Because what they told me is, since it's the middle of the semester, it would probably be a earliest summer semester thing. So I think
we're going in the same boat with Red Egg. We're looking, I think they can get, so it's $5,000, 10 to 14 weeks. We would probably need a couple of people on our end, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, they can only do what we ask them to do. And it's only as good as, you know, kind of our thought on what's required, right? So some of the requirements. So we would want people, we want a couple people on this. I'm willing to be a part of that. I've been looking at this for way too long. Lindsay, you already put the requirements together. Bobby, I think land use and the communication and dissemination of information on land use and some of the work, I think those are some of the most important pieces that either don't exist today or need to happen in the future. But we would need a small committee of people to help Red Egg, you know, vet through all of this kind of stuff. So I'm going to bring that up for next month for discussing and trying to move whether we spend $5,000 and we budget and allocate for that for 2022. So that's kind of the last thing. I'll send you all the proposal. You guys can look at it and we'll make that a topic of discussion for next month. And thank you so much for the folks who stayed on for going over 18 minutes. I appreciate that very much. And anybody last minute thoughts, anything that we need to think about, talk about before we don't meet again?
One question on the annual meeting. Who's reaching out to Sandal, at Sandal, right? Yeah, for the school.
I can do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, all we need is that date and we'll find out from them. But mostly it should be free and they carry insurance already. So if they book it, it costs us nothing. If they can't book it or something weird, it'll probably be somewhere around $150 or something for insurance and maybe a $25 fee. But there is coordination because they have to leave it open. There's cleanup, there's garbage, there's moving of tables and moving the tables back. So next month, we will actually have to focus on volunteers, who's doing what and who's showing up. Actually, everybody needs to show up and everybody needs to do something. But next month we can do that. But I will secure that date. I think we could do that pretty quickly. Anyone else? All right, guys, thank you so much for the extra 20 minutes. I appreciate you guys all. And, you know, talk to you guys soon. We'll be in touch via email over the next month. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day. Thank you very much, guys.